Hello again, everyone. Today we're going to look at some spheres. A sphere, basically a ball, sphere is unlike a cone or a cylinder. Cone and cylinder had two different measurements. They had a radius and they had a height. A sphere only has one measurement, and that measurement is the radius. A sphere doesn't really have a height because it's a ball. So the radius is the distance from the center point of the sphere inside the middle, to any point on the edge. So because of that, there's no height in our formula. But we still need a third dimension, a third power. So we're not going to use a square in our formula this time. We're going to use a cube. So the official formula to find the volume of a sphere is 4/3 times pi times radius cubed, third power. But most of you don't particularly work with a fraction, or you're using a calculator that doesn't have a fraction button. So to get rid of the fraction, we could do 4 times pi times radius cubed, and then divide by 3. So you're multiplying by the 4, and then dividing by the 3. You can just do it in 2 steps. So that's the one I'm going to use every time. I'm going to use 4 times pi times radius cubed, and then divide by 3 to find the volume of a sphere. Let's take a look and see how it works. Here's our sphere. There's only one measurement here. That measurement goes from the edge to the center, the middle point of the sphere. Notice they had this little dotted circle in the middle here. That's what's showing it's three-dimensional, because if not, it would just look like a two-dimensional flat circle. This is giving us that three-dimensional appearance. So my radius here is 5. Okay, so I'm going to use 4 times pi times the radius cubed divided by 3. So it's 4 times pi, 3.14, times the radius 5 cubed, and then divide by 3. So if you're not sure how to do 5 cubed on just like a cell phone calculator or a standard calculator, you can just do 5 times 5 times 5. So instead of doing 5 cubed, I can do 5 times 5 times 5. That's 125. So when I do some calculations here, I've got 4 times 3.14 times that 125 that I got from 5 cubed, and then divide by 3. And you're almost always going to get some sort of repeating decimal here because you're dividing by 3. Dividing by 3 frequently doesn't divide evenly, especially if this radius number is not a multiple of 3. So a lot of times you're going to get repeating decimals with this formula. So the answer I got is 523 point, let's see what they tell me to round to. They tell me to round to the nearest hundredth. I get a 3 repeating, so it's going to be a 3 units cubed. Here's my volume of that sphere. Not too bad. The sphere only has that one measurement, so it's almost impossible to mess it up. Next one's a little different, though. There is the possibility you could get this question. They tell you to use not 3.14 for pi. They tell you to use this fraction. It's 22 over 7. 22 over 7 is the fraction estimate for pi. It's not quite exactly 3.14, but it's the fractional estimate that's used for pi. They might ask you to use a fraction anytime there's a measurement in a fraction. See, my measurement here is a half. So since they give you a fraction measurement, they're going to give you a fraction for pi. Here's my suggestion. They tell you you can leave your exact answer in terms of pi, which I talked about in the last video. So you can actually just leave pi as a pi symbol and not even use the 22 over 7. And you can put your answer with the pi symbol. I'm going to do it both ways. I'll show you that first way. That's easier. And I'll show you the second way working out with the fraction. So let's see. I have 4 times. I'm just going to leave this as a pi for now. 1/2 is my radius. Nobody likes 1/2, but it is what it is. 1/2 cubed, and then divided by 3. So let's see, 1/2 cubed is a major stepping point for some of you, stumbling point. 1/2 cubed means 1/2 times itself 3 times. I'm going to do that up here. 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. Well, a half times a half times a half is 1/8, because 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So 1/2 cubed is 1/8. I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to take this pi, I'm going to just rip it out of here for a second. Now this is 4 times 1/8 divided by 3. Well, let's see, 4 times 1/8, I'll put the 4 over 1. And I'll simplify this 4 and this 8. This becomes 1 and 2. So now, this 4 times 1/8 is 1/2 divided by 3. Well, dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying by 1/3. So now it's 1/2. I'm out of space here. I'm going to come up here. 1/2. I'll kind of bring this up here. Times 1/3, which is 1/6. So all these nasty fractions and numbers got me a 1/6, and that 6 has to get multiplied by pi. So I'm just going to stick a pi on there. 1/6 pi is my answer. That's my answer written exactly in terms of pi. Now, if you want to use that fraction at 22/7 and get a fractional answer, well, that means I need to multiply 1/6 times 22/7 for pi. Well, let me cross reduce here. They both divide by 2. This becomes an 11. This becomes a 3. And now I have 1 times 11, that's 11. And 3 times 7 is 21. So you could give either answer. They'll accept either answer in this assignment. I would suggest just leaving it with the pi because it's just easier. Leave it in terms of pi and you're good. All right. Now we're going to composite it. We're going to do 2 once here. Composites with spheres, well, that's not even a sphere. Take a look at that. First of all, can you tell that that's not on top? That's inside. This is a hole. It's like a bowl hole in the top of this rectangular prism. So because this is a hole, when I do my composite, I'm not going to be adding these volumes together. I'm taking this volume out of there. I'm subtracting. So I'm going to find the volume of this rectangular prism. There's my volume formula for the rectangular prism. And I'm going to subtract the volume of this hole. Well, this hole is half of a sphere. It's called a hemisphere. You may have heard that word in social studies. It's always the northern hemisphere. We live in the northern hemisphere of the Earth. So I'm going to take my 4 times pi times radius cubed divided by 3 formula for my sphere. And then I have half of it, so I'm going to divide it by 2. A lot of complicated numbers here going on. Let's do the easy one first. Length times width times height, 10 times 10 times 13. That gives me my volume of my rectangular prism. And that is 1,300. And I need to minus it. I need to take away the volume of this half of a sphere hole. So let's start working this out. So it's going to be 4 times 3.14 for pi times radius cubed. Well, let's take a look for radius. They drew it, but they didn't give it to me. Well, it goes from here halfway across this circle. Well, halfway across the circle is also halfway across this rectangular prism. Well, all the way across this prism is 10. So halfway across, that means my radius is 5. So it's going to be a 5 cubed. And then divide by 3. And whatever answer I get for the sphere, I got to divide by 2 because it's only half of a sphere. So 4 times pi times 5 cubed divided by 3 and then divided by 2 gives me 261.6. Repeating, I'm going to round that off to 6, 7. because I'm rounding up to the hundreds place. Now I'm going to subtract. 1,300 minus 261.67 gives me a volume with that missing hole, that bowl cut out at the top, of 1,038.33 centimeters cubed. All right, so just be careful with the formula. You go back up and look at it again. If you have a calculator that uses a fraction, it has a fraction function, you can do 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. If you don't have that fraction function in your calculator, you can multiply 4 times pi radius cubed, then divide by 3. It gets you to the same final answer. And if you have that half of a sphere, that hemisphere, you got to take your sphere formula and divide the whole thing by 2 to get it in half. All right, have fun today.